All right, let's get right into it. So, on the surface, it seems like we've got some good news out of Washington, right? A deal's been reached to avoid a government shutdown. But as you're about to find out, that headline, well, it doesn't even come close to telling the whole story.
So this is the story that hit all the news channels. After all that back and forth, a bill gets passed. And for a second, it feels like a moment of resolution, a real sigh of relief. You'd think, okay, crisis over, time to move on. But is it? Is the crisis actually over? We're going to peel back the layers on this one because what's bubbling up just underneath that simple headline is way more interesting and honestly a lot more important for what happens next.
Let's start with the deal itself, because calling it a solid agreement, that might be a stretch. It's really more like a fragile truce, and believe me, the cracks started to show almost immediately.
And this is where it gets really fascinating. I mean, the ink was barely dry on this deal, and already opposition was building. And get this, the first rumblings of trouble? They weren't coming from the other side of the aisle. Nope. They were coming from inside the very party that helped put the deal together.
So let's zoom in on this first layer of the conflict. This isn't your classic Republican versus Democrat story. At least, not yet. This is about deep cracks forming within the Democratic Party itself.
And we're not just talking about a few outliers here. According to reporting from The Guardian, we're talking about some top-tier leaders in the House of Representatives. They were going on the record, vowing to vote against the very bill meant to keep the government running. So what's with the friendly fire?
This quote really cuts right to the heart of it. For this group of dissenters, the deal didn't feel like a compromise at all. To them, it felt like giving up on critical issues they had been fighting tooth and nail for.
So, what got left behind? Well, these Democrats are pointing to some huge omissions, like crucial healthcare subsidies that affect millions of people. For them, passing a bill without these key priorities felt like they were abandoning the very principles they stood for.
Okay, but that internal squabble, that's just one piece of this puzzle. Now let's zoom out a bit to the bigger, more familiar fight, the one that's constantly raging between the two major parties. And this really lays out the difference perfectly. The battle inside the party, that was tactical, right? It was about what was in this specific bill. But the fight between the parties, oh, that is a whole different beast. We're talking about a much broader war, one that's constantly being fueled by controversies and major leaks that go way beyond this single piece of legislation.
And just when you thought things couldn't get any more tense, Sky News reports on a totally separate issue that's just pouring gasoline on the fire, a major controversy over leaked emails. Now, this has nothing to do with the shutdown bill directly, but it has everything to do with the toxic political climate that makes any kind of real agreement so incredibly difficult.
So here's why this matters. These leaks connect some of the most polarizing figures and issues out there, including Donald Trump and the Jeffrey Epstein case. This stuff isn't just background noise. It's the kind of thing that absolutely destroys trust and eats away at any goodwill you might need for cooperation. It makes working together on anything feel nearly impossible.
Now let's zoom out one last time. Because beyond all the internal party drama and the public partisan brawls, there are even deeper, more fundamental battles being fought over the actual direction of the country's policies. These are the real foundational fault lines.
And this is where things get really serious. Reporting from Reuters points out that while everyone's distracted by the shutdown drama and the leaks, really significant policy changes are being pushed through on other fronts. Let's take a look at a really important example.
First, just so we're all on the same page, what do we mean by consumer protections? Basically, we're talking about the rules of the road that protect everyday people. Things that ensure fair treatment and basic rights when it comes to stuff like banking and finance.
And here's the concrete example Reuters brings up. There's a push to actually narrow anti-discrimination rules in the financial world. Just let that sink in for a second. This is a huge policy shift, one with massive real-world consequences. And it's all happening kind of quietly, under the radar of all the louder political drama.
So what does this all mean when you put it all together? You've got fractures inside the parties, fractures between the parties, and these deep foundational fractures on major policy. Let's tie all these threads together. And this is really the key takeaway from our whole explainer today. The bill to end the shutdown isn't a cure, it's a band-aid. It's a temporary patch on a foundation that's got some serious cracks. Those underlying tensions, they haven't gone anywhere.
What's so crucial to see here is how all these fractures feed each other. The internal policy fights create weakness, the partisan scandals destroy trust, and those quiet, deeper policy battles change the rules of the game entirely. How the parties handle all these interconnected pressures is going to define every single political battle we see from here on out.
So you see how it all connects, right? The internal dissent, the partisan warfare, and those fundamental policy shifts. They aren't separate problems. They're all part of this feedback loop that just makes everything harder to solve. And so I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. If the foundation has this many cracks, how strong can the house really be?